On a deserted winter highway, just past midnight, Daniel Hayes heard a desperate knocking on the side of his truck. When he opened the door, he found a shivering woman clutching a newborn baby, begging for help. He offered her warmth, safety, and a ride, never imagining that within hours, he would discover she wasn't who she said she was, and that their encounter would change both their lives forever. The storm had swallowed Highway 47 whole. Snow spiraled across the empty road like ghosts drifting aimlessly in the dark. Daniel Hayes had driven through plenty of nights, but this one felt different, thicker, heavier, like the world itself was holding its breath. His windshield wipers fought endlessly against the storm, squeaking in a tired rhythm that only added to the eerie silence. Daniel had been on the road for 15 hours straight. His eyelids felt like bricks, threatening to close every time he blinked. So when he saw the faint outline of an abandoned rest stop, half hidden by blowing snow, he decided it would have to do. He pulled the truck into a crooked parking space, the headlights cutting through the white fog before dimming to darkness as he turned off the engine. Inside the cab, warmth still clung to the air. He leaned back with a long exhale, the tension leaving his shoulders. He rubbed his eyes, listening to the wind pound against the truck. Out here, there was nothing, no houses, no open businesses, no other cars. Just winter, endless and merciless. Just as he began drifting towards sleep, it came. Bang! 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 3 hard knocks, unexpected, sharp, too human to be the wind. Daniel jolted upright, hard hammering. The second set of knocks came faster, more desperate. He flicked on the cabin light and glanced toward the passenger side window. At first all he saw was frost and swirling snow. He leaned closer. And then he froze. A woman stood pressed against the glass. Her face was nearly white, her hair stuck to her cheeks with chunks of ice clinging to the ends. In her arms she clutched something small, wrapped in what looked like a thin blanket. She lifted one shaking hand and knocked again, weakly this time. Instinct took over. Daniel flung open the door, and a blast of icy air slammed into him. The cold felt alive, crawling into his clothes and biting his skin. The woman stumbled forward, half collapsing into his arms. "Please," she managed, her voice trembling so violently it barely formed the word. "My baby. Help us." Daniel's breath caught. He looked down at the infant pressed against her chest. The baby wasn't crying, just lying there, too still. He quickly ushered them both into the cab and slammed the door shut. The woman curled protectively around the child as she pressed close to the heater vents Daniel turned up to full blast. Her fingers were blue at the tips. Hey, it's okay," Daniel said, trying to steady his voice. "You're safe now. What happened?" She didn't answer right away. Her teeth chattered so violently she could barely form a sentence. She kept whispering, "Stay awake. Stay awake," not to him, but to the baby. Daniel grabbed the emergency thermal blanket from behind the seat and wrapped it around both mother and child. After a few minutes, the baby let out a tiny, thin cry, weak but alive. Relief washed over Daniel so hard it almost made him dizzy. He turned back to the woman. "What's your name?" "Elena," she stuttered, rubbing the baby's back. I got stranded. My car. It died. I didn't know what to do. I tried walking but," her voice cracked. "It was too cold." Daniel nodded slowly, though something about her explanation felt off. Her eyes darted around, filled with fear that didn't match the situation she described. And when she shifted, the blanket slipped enough for Daniel to notice a bruise on her collarbone, fresh and ugly. "This storm is no joke," he said quietly. "You're lucky you found me." Her eyes brimmed with tears, but she didn't respond. Instead, she held the baby closer, whispering soothing words through her trembling breath. And right then, right in that small, fogged-up truck cab, Daniel had no idea that the woman he'd just rescued was hiding a truth that would flip his entire world upside down within hours. The storm had grown angrier, slashing sideways across the highway like shards of white glass. Daniel kept both hands tight on the wheel, leaning forward just to see 10 feet in front of him. The truck rattled in the wind, the wipers squeaking in frantic rhythm. Every so often he glanced at Lena, who sat curled around the baby as if her body were the only shield between her daughter and the world. The heater hummed softly, warming the air, but Lena still shivered, though Daniel suspected the cold had very little to do with it. "So, where exactly were you headed?" he asked carefully, hoping to break the tension. Lena tightened her hold on the baby just slightly. Her lips parted, then closed again. She stared out the window into the swirling darkness. "Somewhere safe," she whispered. Daniel frowned. It wasn't the answer of someone who was simply stranded. It was the answer of someone running. Still, he didn't press. Not yet. A few miles later, the road narrowed, forcing him to slow to a crawl. Snowdrifts piled high, and every turn looked like it led nowhere. The GPS flickered twice before dying altogether. "We might need to find shelter soon," he murmured. Lena nodded, brushing her thumb across the baby's cheek. The little girl stirred, letting out a tiny cry. "What's her name?" Daniel asked. A soft smile finally cracked across Lena's face, painful, but real. "Maddie," she said. "Madeline. It's a beautiful name. She's everything. She's the only reason I'm still breathing." There was a crack in her voice, a truth trying desperately to escape. Daniel let the silence sit until Lena's shoulders began to tremble. She wasn't cold. She was breaking. "Lena," he said gently. "You're safe here. Nobody's going to hurt you." Her eyes snapped to his so fast that Daniel felt his stomach twist. There was raw fear there, a fear too deep to be from a car breaking down. "Someone is after you, isn't he?" he asked quietly. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. A single tear escaped down her cheek, and that was answer enough. They drove like that for another half hour, Daniel focused on the road, Lena lost in her terror, until the lights of an old roadside diner flickered in the distance. He pulled in, grateful for even a sliver of civilization in the storm. Inside, the diner was warm and nearly empty. A single old jukebox in the corner hummed with static. Daniel led Lena to a booth, and she sank into the seat like she hadn't sat down in days. He ordered coffee for himself and hot water for her to warm a bottle. As she fed Maddie, her hands finally steadied. But her eyes remained dark, distant. "You can trust me," Daniel said softly. "I don't know what you're running from, but I can't help you unless you tell me." Lena stared down at the baby. Her fingers trembled as she brushed a curl away from the infant's forehead. The air seemed to thicken between them. "Daniel. I wasn't stranded," she whispered. He waited, heart thudding. "My husband. He's not who people think he is. He hurt me. He hurt me for years." Her voice cracked. "And when Maddie was born, he changed, but not for the better. He started saying things. Threatening things." Daniel clenched his jaw. "And tonight," she continued, swallowing hard, "he snapped. I grabbed her and ran. I didn't even grab a coat." Daniel's breath stilled. "My husband is a deputy sheriff," she whispered, voice shaking. "If he finds me, he'll take her. He'll make sure nobody ever believes me." Daniel closed his eyes, fighting the anger rising in him like fire. Just then, the diner TV switched channels, static, then a breaking news alert. A reporter's voice filled the room. "A local deputy is asking the public for help locating his missing wife and newborn daughter." A photo appeared. Lena, holding baby Maddie. Lena's fork clattered to the table. Daniel stared at her. And in that moment, he understood, she wasn't lying. She was terrified. And whoever she was running from had already dragged the world into the hunt. The diner felt suddenly too quiet, too small. The picture of Lena and Maddie stayed frozen on the TV screen, framed by the words "missing mother and child." But Daniel had seen enough cases, enough news stories, to recognize the tone behind the report. This wasn't a plea for help. This was a cover-up. Lena's fingers shook as she grabbed the baby from the booster seat, holding her close as though the screen itself might reach out and seize her child. "He's already twisting it," she whispered. "He's going to make me look insane." Daniel leaned forward, lowering his voice. "We're going to fix this." Lena shook her head violently. "You don't understand. He has friends in every station around here. He knows how to corner people, how to lie. He'll say I'm unstable, or that I hurt her, or..." "Lena." Daniel's voice cut through her panic. "Do you have proof of what he did?" She hesitated. Her gaze flicked downward, and she reached slowly into the side pocket of the baby bag. "I do," she whispered. But what?" "My phone died before I could show anyone." Her lip trembled. "And I left it in the car. I was so scared I didn't think. I just ran." Daniel exhaled. Relief and dread mixed in his chest like oil and water. "Then that's where we go," he said firmly. "We get your phone, we get proof, and we go straight to the state police, not his station, the next one over. They're outside his influence." "But if he finds us first?" "He won't." Daniel said it with a confidence he wasn't fully sure he felt, but Lena needed something solid to hold onto. They left the diner quickly. The storm had come to a gentle fall of snowflakes, quiet, almost peaceful. Daniel guided Lena and the baby into the truck, then turned the engine. The headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating the snow-covered road back toward her abandoned car. The driver was silent, weighted with fear and the thin hope that maybe, just maybe, this nightmare could be undone. When they found Lena's car, it was half buried in snow on the shoulder of the road. The windshield was completely frosted over, the door nearly frozen shut. Lena reached for the handle with shaking fingers. Daniel stopped her. "Stay with Maddie. I'll get it." He dug through the front seat, then the glove box, tossing aside scattered belongings until there, a pink, cracked phone. He wiped it on his sleeve and rushed back into the truck. The moment the charger clicked into place, Lena held her breath. The screen flickered, died, flickered again, and finally lit up. A flood of emotion washed over her face, fear, relief, dread all at once. "It's all in here," she whispered. "Everything he did." Daniel nodded. "Show me." She opened a video. Shaky camera. Lena crying. Her husband, towering, red-faced, shoving her against a wall. Screaming threats. Hands in her hair. The kind of rage that made Daniel feel sick to his stomach. "That's more than enough," he said, fists clenched. But before he could say anything else, flashing red and blue lights exploded across the snow. A sheriff's SUV pulled up behind them. Lena gasped, clutching the baby. Daniel felt his pulse spike, but he forced himself to stay calm. "It's okay," he whispered. "Let me handle this." He stepped out slowly, phone in hand. The deputy sheriff, Lena's husband, emerged from the SUV. His face was composed, but his eyes glistened with a kind of madness Daniel recognized all too well. "So," the deputy said, voice dripping with false concern, "you found my wife?" Daniel didn't answer. "She's confused," the deputy continued, stepping closer. "Unwell. I need to take her home. You understand?" Daniel held up the phone. "No," he said clearly. "You're not taking her anywhere." The deputy's smile faltered. And then, sirens. 2 more police cars appeared behind the SUV. Backup. Not his. Daniel had called them from the diner's landline. The deputy's face went pale as officers stepped out, demanding he put his hands where they could see them. He shouted, protested, tried to twist the story, but it was over. Within minutes, he was in handcuffs. Hours later, inside a small, quiet cafe in a neighboring county, Lena held Maddie close as Daniel sat across from her. "You saved my life," she whispered. Daniel shook his head. "You saved your own. I just drove the truck." But Lena looked at him with tears in her eyes, the grateful kind, the kind that come from someone who finally feels safe. And for the first time in years, Daniel Hayes felt something warm settle into his chest. Purpose. In the end, it wasn't the storm that nearly took her life, it was the silence of those who looked away. But one man chose to stop, to listen, to care, and that single moment of compassion saved an entire future. Sometimes, the greatest heroes are the ones who simply refuse to drive past someone in the dark.